unmuted, put yourself on mute. We will have announcements, we have what's new, and then we have Steve Wexler talking about how to use data visualizations to make better decisions faster. And then we have social hour, 15 minutes. So if you have time at the end of the meeting, we just hang out on Zoom, just get to know people, talk, since you can't be in person. So, you know, if you have time after this meeting, feel free to hang on afterwards. All right, announcements, upcoming meetings. So this is actually a great session to tie into our Power BI dashboard contest. So on July 22nd at 11:30, we'll be having a contest. So reach out to me, Will, or Michael if you want to participate. Basically, you know, just show us some of the dashboards that you have, even if you want to use a data set from work, if you want to use something that you personally worked on, whatever you want to do. But we're having a contest. This is one of our favorite meetings. We haven't had it in a while, so it would be great to see who participates. So if you want to be a part of this, reach out to us and we'll put you on the schedule. YouTube, so National Power BI User Group. We now have 72 subscribers. We created the channel in March, so maybe February, I don't remember. But we have users, subscribe. So if you're not a subscriber, go to YouTube, look us up, subscribe. We'd love to have you. We have our prior meetings on there. It's been some great content, so check us out. Then our Meetup page, we are so close to 1,500 members. We're really, really close. So we just keep growing. I'm just really excited to see the growth, and just want to highlight, you know, that we're almost at 1,500 members. LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, we have a National Power BI User Group LinkedIn page, post content on there as well. So if you're an active LinkedIn user, go there and follow us and subscribe to the stuff that we post on there. All right, so normally we have a recruiter for job opportunities. We don't have one this month, but I did want to leave a couple minutes for people that are on the call to announce any job opportunities. So if you or your department or your company is looking for, you know, primarily either analysts, Power BI developers, data engineering, anything related, if you have any opportunities, this is the time to announce that, or, you know, type it in the comments, however you want to do it. But just going to leave a couple minutes here for people to announce any job opportunities. All right, great. So it looks like we're all good. We're not growing at all. So, but
the recruiter last month had 9 Power BI openings.
Yeah, I think there was some stuff there. Okay, well, like I said, on all these places you can contact us on LinkedIn, YouTube, all these other places. If you have opportunities, feel free to post them there, and we can reach out to the masses. All right, so what's new? So Power BI came out with an update in May. So I'm gonna do a demo on one of the things that I thought was really cool. One of the things that I noticed with the update is small multiples is now on by default. So it's not in preview anymore, which is great. New field list is now generally available. Modern visual tooltips, I'm gonna do a quick demo on that. I think it's really cool. Support for removing an MIP label on desktop. There's some more stuff to smart narratives. Some more stuff with data modeling, and then data connectivity. So if you can't connect to the data, you can't do anything with it. So it's really cool to see Azure Databricks, Amazon Redshift Vertica, and Microsoft Graph Security have some updates. So, but for now, I'm going to do a quick demo on the modern visual tooltips. I did this last night, so my dashboard is not the greatest, but I want to show actual content here. So create a quick report from the test data set that's available on Power BI. And the new modern visual tooltips basically allow you to drill up, drill down, or drill through without having to either right click or hover over this piece. So normally if you're drilling up or drilling down, you would click this button to go to the next level of the hierarchy. Actually, let me show you the data. I did a date calendar. So if we look at our date hierarchy, we have year, quarter, month, day. So if we start at the highest level, 2014, go down, you have a quarter, month, day. So with the new tooltip that is available, instead of you having to click this information, you can hover over it, and then you will now see drill down. So now you have the ability to drill down into the information, and you can drill up. So now it's on the tooltip instead of it being here at the top of the bar. That's really cool. Another feature that's there is now you have the ability to actually drill through. So normally if you want to drill through, you come in here, right click, drill through to the page. But now you have the ability to hover over it. And now you can either drill down or you can drill through to the page. So if you hover over it, you can now go to the drill through page. So that's really cool. Instead of having to right click, you're saving a whole bunch of clicks with the new tooltips. There could be some other stuff out there that makes it really more useful, but these are the two things that I saw that were really, really cool. And if you want to get that available for Power BI, go to options, then go to preview settings. Yes, preview features, and click on modern visual tooltips. And there's a video out there from Microsoft that goes more into detail about it, but really cool feature. I think that allows your user some flexibility. All right. So that was really cool that I thought of, that I saw while I was going through it. Couple another updates is now you can quickly create reports from SharePoint list, report apps and data flows, endorsement, data sets, hub improvements, mobile. There's a lot of good stuff there, and then visualization. So Power BI has a whole bunch of custom visualizations. Here are some of the new ones that are available out there with the community. So we want to quickly show, I don't know if you all be able to see the audio, but this quickly create reports from SharePoint list was really cool. So I'm going to go quickly to the update on the YouTube page and see if you all can see this stuff.
In December, we added an experience to the Power BI service that helped you quickly create reports with just a few clicks. And now we're excited to announce the same experience is launching within SharePoint and Microsoft List as well. This experience empowers users to easily explore their data without needing to start from scratch. When looking at the list, you'll find the option available under the Integrate menu. When you click Visualize the List, a new tab is opened and a report is going to be automatically generated for you based off of the list data that you were just on. If you want to change what fields are used within the report, that's really easy to do. You can just use the Summarize pane and select and unselect fields within here. You can also use the Summarize pane to change the aggregation type that is being used within the visuals for any numeric field. If you want to make larger changes, you can use the Edit button in the app bar to switch to our full edit mode. But be aware that once you save the report in the full edit mode, you can't go back to this previous quick edit experience. If you want to save and share what you have created with other people on your team, you can use the Publish button. Once you've published a report, it will be accessible to everyone who has access to the list and will include all of the data that is within the report you're viewing. You won't find these reports within any workspace within the Power BI service. Instead, you'll access them from the SharePoint list and the same menu item where you entered the Visualize the List experience to begin with. When accessing saved reports, if you make any changes to the view, you can use the Publish to the List button to push the changes back to everyone, or you could use the Delete button to remove this report from everyone's access. There are a couple of things to note about this experience. First, this experience is rolling out as part of Microsoft 365's targeted release. So if you're on the standard release, you'll see this feature light up in a future release. Second, anyone will be able to use the Visualize the List experience with the Power BI free license, but to actually publish it back to the list or open previously published list, you'll need a pro license. If you don't currently have a pro license, we'll give you the option to buy or try from free right within this experience.
Next, we're in.
Cool. So I thought that was really cool when I was, trying to build this out and looking at the updates. And so yeah, quick report. So it's from SharePoint list, and I think it's from other type of lists, and who knows what's going to happen as they build out stuff, but be on the lookout for that. I think that's going to be really, really useful, especially if you do anything for Office 365. And then template apps, data flows analysis has been updated, developers, some updates there. And then the big one that came out, I think last month or the month before last, maybe in February or March, you can connect to Power Pivot Table refresh in Excel. So that's a really cool one with refreshing in Excel for web. And then the community, there's new user group tools. So there's a lot more resources for people that are doing more community stuff out there that they have posted. If you look at Power Apps, the couple apps that they have there are advanced lookup experience and model-driven Power Apps, and then relationship validation for solutions. And in Power Automate, there are 4 new connectors that have been available. I haven't heard of them, but they're available. So if you use any of these, they are available for you. And then update notifications are now available in Power BI Desktop. So if you're using desktop and then there's a notification up there, and now pop up and let you know what's going on with your Power Automate flow. So some really good stuff out there in the Microsoft community that's been going on. And then DXDo, if you're not familiar with it, go to the website. This is a website that allows you to work on your DAX on the fly. So instead of you having to build out a data model or anything in Power BI, you can go to the website and use their resources to work on some of the DAX equations that you've seen. It's been really useful. I've used it a couple of times. Just if I've seen a new measure, or if I've seen a new calculation, I've been able to go to the website and do it quickly on the fly without using anything local. So DXDo, great resource if you're trying to build something out. All right, so with that, we have Steve Wexler, who will show us how to use data visualization to make better decisions. A little bit about Steve Wexler. He is the founder of Data Revelations, co-author of the Big Book of Dashboards, visualizing your data using real-world business scenarios, and the author of The Big Picture, how to use data visualization to make better decisions. Steve has worked with ADP, Gallup, Johnson & Johnson, Deloitte, and a number of other organizations to help them understand and visualize their data. A winner of numerous data visualization honors and awards, Steve also serves on the advisory board of Data Visualization Society. His presentations and training classes combine extraordinary level of product mastery with the real-world experience gained through developing thousands of visualizations for dozens of clients. Steve has taught thousands of people in both large and small organizations and is known for conducting his seminars with clarity, patience, and humor. I'm personally excited. This is right up my alley. I'm a data visualization guy, so I have my notepad ready. So Steve, thanks again for joining, and the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Let me share my screen. And which you need to relinquish control.
Okay. Let me do that. All right.
All right, let's try this again with feeling. How to use data visualization to make better decisions faster. Sekou, thank you so much. You've been wonderful in welcoming me to this group, and your 2 colleagues, William and Michael. Really happy to be meeting a whole different group of people. So my goal here is to share with you some things that I think every business person should know about data visualization. I'm not talking just about the practitioner, which I think everyone who's here is a practitioner. You should certainly know this stuff, but it's your audience, your stakeholders, your clients, your boss, who may not have embraced these things or get them. And I think together, if we can just lift up the graphic literacy, there's a wonderful made-up word or neologism, graphicacy of everyone in the organization, so we can have better, more informed discussions around data, and be able to make much better decisions a lot faster. As Sekou mentioned, I'm the founder, principal, and sole employee of Data Revelations. I'm one of the 3 authors of the Big Book of Dashboards, along with Jeff Schaefer and Andy Cotgreave. That's the book that's geared towards the practitioner, the people who are going to create charts and dashboards. By the way, those of you who, maybe a handful of you know who I am, I'm pretty well known in the Tableau community. This book and the next one I'm going to allude to in this presentation, this is all totally tool agnostic stuff. I am also the author of the just released The Big Picture, How to Use Data Visualization to Make Better Decisions Faster. And I'm going to share some of the stuff that's in the book with you today. I show this slide in virtually every presentation and workshop that I give. and you are encouraged to disagree with me. Yes, I have the really badass clicker that allows me to do cool things like this and highlight things, and I kind of have the control of things at the moment. But in chat or when we have Q&A, if I say something that you disagree with, or wait, that hasn't been my experience, or that doesn't resonate with me, good things happen when we debate these things. So feel free to chime in, because together we may come up with a better way of looking at something than what either of us would have come up with independently. Well, I do want to start with this notion of why just the numbers isn't good enough. And the fact that you're all invested in this group means, well, you probably get this, but maybe your stakeholders don't get this. How many times and how frustrated are you when people say, hey, I don't need the charts and graphs, I just need to see a spreadsheet? Or maybe the cruelest thing they can do to a dashboard developer is, hey, can you just put a button there that will allow me to download this as a CSV file? So I want to show you an amalgam of every client that I've had over the last 15 years or so as I've been doing this, who just cling to their spreadsheets. Now, you can have my spreadsheet when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. Well, how are we going to convince these people that they're missing out, that they're working way harder than they need to, that I don't care how adept they are at looking at a table full of numbers, the best person on the planet is only so good. So what are some ways that we can get them to see just what it is that the practitioner brings to the table? So let's start with something like this. A table full of numbers, 3 categories over 12 months. Overall, which of these 3 categories, consumer, corporate, or education, had the highest sales and which had the fewest sales? And I'm sure you're all adept at this. You can look at the numbers, but a fair argument from the spreadsheet diehards would be, Steve, that's a dumb question to ask. This is a trivial thing to answer if you just put a total in. You know, put the total in the thing, and it's obvious to see which is the largest. You're right. Corporate is larger than consumer, is larger than education. Fair point, spreadsheeters. Suppose you want to know, and I think this is a very reasonable question, when was that not the case? In which month or months was the top overall category, corporate, not the top? And did it falter by a little, or did it falter by a lot? Same for the other categories. That's a very reasonable question. That's very hard to answer with this view of the data. With the line chart, it becomes absolutely trivial. You know, you can see that corporate is up at the top and then consumer and education. By the way, this is a nice technique that I need to remind myself to do more and more often. Instead of there being some color legend over here or something over here, and you got to go, well, what does orange mean? Oh, there's the color legend. Instead, we have direct labeling the lines. I often forget to do this, and it's a nice thing to do for your audience. In any case, not only does this answer that question instantly, whoa, March, oh, July, it also poses new questions. I think that's a hallmark of really good data visualization. One that has you answering, what happened here? Did it happen last year? Is it going to happen again next year? Is this cyclical? Is there something we can do to prevent it? That's a good data visualization. So there's the before version, the spreadsheet that has all the information embedded in it. And here's the line chart that provides the clear answer to both questions, which is the highest overall, and which months was that not the case. But maybe these people still really like seeing their tablefuls of numbers. How can we get them over this hump? So I want to introduce you to the highlight table, or as I call it, the gateway drug to data visualization. Highlight table is one of several terms for this. You can also call this, in Excel, it's called conditional formatting. Right? So let's look at the spreadsheet. There are 17 different product subcategories. There are 4 different regions, total of 68 different cells. See if you can figure this out. Type into chat. Overall, which combination of product subcategory and region is the least profitable, and what is the most profitable? So is it office furnishings in the South? Is it labels in the West? So go ahead, type into chat if you can find overall most profitable, cell, and overall the least profitable. Not overall, it's just of these 68 things, which combination, which cell has the highest, which has the lowest. Let's see how you do. Office machines, Anthony comes in with office machines in the South for highest. And Anthony, that is well done. You are correct. Okay, let's see if you can find the lowest. By the way, that was worth 10 bonus points. Will Harvey comes in with tables in the East. You are correct. By the way, it takes people on average maybe about 20 seconds to do this. And there's a lot of errors. You know, people will not realize, oh, I thought I saw the biggest number, but I missed it. Because you have to run through these things sequentially. So here are the correct answers. There's something I can do to this while keeping the numbers intact that'll take that 20-second exercise and reduce it to 3 seconds. I can just color code the cells. You don't even have to see the numbers. Wow, really bad. Wow, really good. And I can even see more from this. I can see tables in general are doing poorly, except in the South, and that binders and accessories are doing really well. I have yet to see any spreadsheet diehard that doesn't like this, because you haven't taken away the numbers, but you've made it easy to find low and high values. Let's take this a little bit further. So now hopefully they like this highlight table or cross tab with color-coded cells. And this is showing technical support calls by hour and day of week. By the way, if time permits, I will share with you what this data set is, as it's interesting. So remind me at the end of this thing to tell you what's actually behind this. In any case, it's pretty easy to see. Oh, a lot of pocket activity here, very little activity over here. Suppose I wanted to know on what day of the week do I get the most calls? On what day of the week do I get the fewest? On what hour of the day do I get the most calls? Do I get the fewest? Well, what I would encourage people to do is anytime I see a highlight table or even a scatter plot for that matter, I'll often marry it with a marginal histogram, type of bar chart, for lack of a better way of articulating it, that's in the margins. And look how these things pop out. Biggest value, smallest value, biggest value. Super easy to see. Well, you might argue, well, come on, Steve, do I really need to put the bar chart, the histogram on the sides? Couldn't I just put totals in here? You can, but you're now running into the same problem. You're having to work through all these numbers sequentially and go, is this number bigger than that number? And remember the numbers. It's pretty tough. Could you color code the numbers? Yeah, you can. The problem is the magnitude of the numbers here larger than what's inside. It may cause some confusion, or we're missing being able to really color code the stuff on the inside. The bigger issue, let's say you figure that out, have something that can say, hey, I can get both of them, is that color coding, it's great, but it only goes so far. Take a look at these two time periods, 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. I just want to look at the totals for them. Well, I can see 11 a.m. I get roughly twice as many calls as 10 a.m. How can I tell that? Because there's a number in there, and I know that 1376 is roughly twice as big as 672. If I take the numbers away, what can I tell? I don't know anyone on the planet who can say that the bottom orange is twice as orange as the top orange. By the way, this is a really good test of a data visualization. If you take the number away, can you still figure it out? Compare that with the bar showing 11 a.m. and 10 a.m. Take away the numbers. I can absolutely see it's twice as big. I'm going to read you this quote. We can say that one shade is darker than another. That is obvious, but to say that it's 2 or 3 times as dark is not visible. It is not readable. And the gentleman who said that was Charles Menard in 1861. You know, the guy who made this thing. And if you haven't seen that thing before, at some point in your data visualization journey, you will. And in fact, you're going to see it in a little while, because that chart is a source of a lot of trouble. All right, other stuff that I'd like to that kind of bring up. I think you're going to run into this with your stakeholders. Why the F do we see so many bar charts? And this notion that somehow bar charts are boring. And question, if you think bar charts are boring, go ahead and type into chat and say, yes, I think bar charts are boring. If you disagree, say you disagree. Let me know what you think. I reluctantly love them. Simple beats sexy, boring. I'm enjoying this. I am on the fence. Love it. Okay, here's my answer to those who think bar charts are boring. It's not your bar chart, it's your data that's boring. And in my head, I hear the comedian Lewis Black spitting this out. If you're not familiar with him, you should be, but he has anger issues. And if you are familiar with him, you can kind of hear him saying this. In any case, let me try to get across why it is we see so many bar charts. Similar data to what we had before. 17 different product subcategories. I'd like to visualize this. And if you let your tool do what it wants to do, whether that be Power BI, Click, MicroStrategy, or Tableau, it's probably going to want to do this. But if you decide, well, that's boring, I want to experiment, I want to make something that's eye-catching and it's going to grab people's attention, maybe you come up with something like this. Without a doubt, the thing on the right is more visually arresting than the thing on the left. But once you've grabbed people's attention, if you don't give them something of value, I don't know if they're going to come back for more. Try to answer questions like with the one on the right. What's second from the top? What's third from the bottom? How much larger is phones than machines? That's really hard to do. And it kind of plays into something I'd like you to try right now. I want you to see how much harder it is to gauge the area of a circle than it is to compare the length of a bar. So take about a half minute, go to bigpic.me/estimate, and let's see how you do with this. And we'll compare this group with another 4,000 people who have taken this survey. And if you didn't have the Jeopardy theme in the back of your head, now you do. It's called Think Music, and it was in fact composed by the creator of the Jeopardy game show, Merv Griffin. And you didn't think you were going to learn anything valuable today. Ha! Okay, give you a little more time, and then we're going to see the results. And I'm going to do the results in real time. Let me bring something up. Give me 1 sec. So here are the results as of maybe an hour ago. Really telling type of stuff. Only 40% got the circle correct. In fact, most people got it wrong and overestimated it. If you take the 55 to 64, et cetera, look, almost twice as many got the bar correct. And you only have a handful of people underestimating and a handful of people overestimating. By the way, should I have displayed the chart this way? Should I have displayed it this way so that I can see this is twice as big as this, but I don't see just how many more, deciding which way to do this and what's the clearest way to do it? That's an example of what one of my friends and colleagues and one of the co-authors of the big book of dashboards calls existential angst. He spit it out by mistake. He meant to say existential angst, and it came out as existential. But when asked which was harder to estimate, 95% said the circles. Let's see how this group did. And yes, I'm using the tool with which I'm most familiar. I'm sure you could make a visualization like this one using Power BI. And let me just look at responses that we got from today. And you're pretty similar to the audience as a whole. And by the way, the audience is mostly data visualization practitioners. And you probably think about this to a deeper degree than most people. So close to twice as many of you got this right, which is what I was hoping for, which is what I expected to see. Humans just aren't particularly good at comparing. And this was almost 2 years ago, similar type of results. We are ridiculously good at judging the length of bars from a common baseline. We're not very good at judging the area of circles. And so this falls into a wonderful quote from a colleague of mine, Andy Kirk, who wrote a book called Data Visualization. What is data visualization? Here's his very erudite way of expressing it. The representation of presentation of data that exploits our visual perception abilities in order to amplify cognition. Translation, good data visualization. Take advantage of what people do well, avoid what they do poorly. They don't do this well, comparing the area of circles. This freaks me out. I've seen this 100 times. It still looks weird to me. First saw Professor Matthew Kay from the University of Michigan. I usually show the circles side by side. He put one right inside the other. Said, what percentage of the larger circle is the smaller circle? Now, you're all thinking about this to a deeper degree than most people who just consume charts and dashboards. So instead, what do you think most people would answer if you were to say, what percentage of the larger circle is the smaller circle? Now, I know the answer, and to me, it looks like it's about 3/4. It's half. The light blue circle is half the area of the dark blue circles. Humans are just terrible at judging the size of circles. That doesn't mean circles are bad. It just means they're not good for creating accurate and quick comparisons. I think this is a perfectly good use of circles. Anyone know what this is a chart of? What am I trying to show here? Please don't say the United States. Yes, it's the lower 48, but what am I trying to show on this chart? Take a guess. Nick and Mika, everyone sees the big blob for California, and they either say population or electoral votes. But then they go to, oh, Oregon and Washington, that can't be right. So it's not, but that's the first thing I see. So I'm with you. Okay, what else could this be? We got some big blobs, some small blobs, and some medium blobs. GDP per state. Anthony, that is an excellent guess. What else could it be? See how you do. Property tax per state. These are good ideas. I've heard of rainfall. My favorite answer was recreational use of marijuana. Said, that's pretty good, but wouldn't Colorado be bigger? So it turns out I have no idea what this is a chart of. I made it 7 years ago. I forgot to put a title on it. I don't know what it's about, but whatever it's about, way more of it is happening over here than happening over here. And that is useful. But if I needed to make exact comparisons, I might pair this with a bar chart that will allow me to see how much larger is this than that. Well, fine, I do want to get back to ultimately, why the F do we see so many bar charts? And if you get a chance, see this movie. It's on Netflix. Dolomite is my name. Eddie Murphy movie. It's very funny. Although you'll soon see, Steve, you look at movies differently than a lot of other people I know. Let me give a setup from a pivotal scene. Rudy Ray Moore is a comedian. He does these comedy albums, and he's tired of doing these one-night performances, traveling from club to club to club to support his album. He decides he's going to make his own movie, and he finances the movie with advance royalties from his record albums. And the record company says, if this doesn't work out, you're going to be in debt to us for the rest of your life. He makes the movie, no studio will distribute it. Desperate, Moore rents a movie theater for a single late night show. To his delight, the show sells out, but there's still no distributor. A cut to next scene, where we see the office of a sleazy Hollywood studio head. He opens up Variety magazine, the trade magazine that has the numbers for movies and TV shows, etc. Opens a page. sees this table full of numbers, sees some number that astounds him, sees the movie that's responsible for it, looks up and says, what the F-ity F? Would you have seen what the F-ity F had you had this table full of numbers? Maybe you have to work really hard, but had it been a bar chart, you would have seen this thing immediately. And if you can't see it yet, how about now? Do you see that there's something significant about that, that number? It's more than twice as big as any other bar. How about now? You get the idea. You're so much faster at noticing these things and seeing not only is that a big bar, but it's twice as big as any other one. So why do we see so many bar charts? Because it gets us to what the F-ity F so much faster. All right. If people say, yeah, but the bars are austere, they're boring, here's what it is. It is length from a common baseline, as well as position from a common baseline. Humans are just good at this without training. So if you get pushback, you can do a dot plot, or maybe a hybrid. This is one of my favorite types of charts. It's called a lollipop chart. It looks a little more visually appealing, not as austere, but it still plays in, it's still analytically rock solid. All right, next item. You may get stakeholders, clients, bosses saying, dashboard's boring. You need something to liven it up. I think more colors would really help it pop. That's probably not the case. My co-authors on the Big Book of Dashboard, we are all in agreement that the misuse of color is probably the #1 infraction in data visualization. And this is everything you need to know about using color in data visualization. Just 5 things: categorical, sequential, diverging, highlight, and alert. I realize that's tantamount to me saying, here's everything you need to know to create great data visualizations. And in music, here's everything you need to know to compose great music. But really, if you understand these things, I don't have time to go through all 5 of them, but I do want to get the overuse of categorical color and a little experiment I did in front of 1,000 people, and I'm going to do it in front of you right now. And especially for those who are encouraging you to use lots of different categorical colors in your dashboards. So let me give you the setup. If you want to play along with me, you can. It's just way more effective if we do this live. I'm going to presenting 1,000 people. And I say, what do you conclude from the following chart? I ask half the group to close their eyes. I'll say, everyone from here over, close your eyes. Everyone else, leave them open. People will have it open. I'm going to show you a chart for 5 seconds. In your head, see if you draw any conclusion. And this is what I show them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I then ask people to switch. Eyes open, close, eyes closed, open. I show the other half this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, everybody open your eyes. First group, what conclusions did you reach? Hoping that the first person who raises her or his hand says, oh, rentals on the weekends were less, which is, there are other conclusions you can have, but I think that's the most obvious one. So yes, rentals on the weekends were less. How many people in the first group saw that? 80% of the hands go up. How many people in the second group saw it? Very few hands go up. What conclusion can we reach? Clearly, the first group is way more intelligent than the second group. No, that's not the case. I then show each group what they saw. And in this first example, color, you cannot help but notice, hey, a bunch of things are really muted. What about these 2 blue things? Oh, Saturday and Sunday, the bars are less long. On the right, you realize color is doing nothing to help you come to any conclusion. You have to fight color to find some conclusion on your own. Maybe you'll see that Tuesday is the longest bar. Maybe Sunday is the shortest bar. But color certainly isn't helping you. And I'm not going to get into storytelling with data if we really wanted to drive talking about curating results. Maybe in addition to color, we have an annotation layer. But the maybe that'll plant some seeds for some ideas of the purposeful use of color. Next item is, how do we garner engagement from our stakeholders? How can we create things that they can't resist? And is it making this amazing looking dashboard that's super colorful and has exotic looking charts? Say, no, you really want to engage people? You make them the center of attention in your dashboard, assuming you can. Make them the focus. You could have the most boring bar charts in the world. If you're showcasing their bar versus everybody else's bar, they are going to be magnetized, but what you have to show them. Let me try to impart this to you and show you the difference between kind of generic and where the audience becomes the centerpiece of a visualization. This is a histogram showing the age distribution of people in the United States as of 2016. Excuse me, 2019 census. Newborns, there are roughly 3.8 million of them. 30-year-olds, there are roughly 4.8 million of them. I see something like this and wondering, whoa, what happened here around 72 or 73? I think this is fascinating. Most of my friends and family, not so much. They're kind of bored by it. But based on seeing a colleague of mine, his name is Chad Skelton, do something for Canadians, I built this interactive dashboard that allows you to select your age and see how much older or younger you are than other people. And it becomes kind of a fascinating discussion. So in fact, let me refresh this and we can try this right now. Are you over the hill in the United States? Warning, if you are older than 50, this is really depressing. But if you are 40 years old, you are older than 52% of all Americans. Here are the people that are younger. Here are the people that are older. By the way, if you're wondering about this, what happened here between 72 and 73? It's not people dying. That is the cusp of the baby boom generation. It's not that suddenly a whole bunch of people died. It's in 1946, a whole bunch of more people were born. In any case, would anyone like to give me would anyone like to give me age and gender, and we can try this? Go ahead and type in your age, and if you're so willing, give me your age and gender. 54 and male. Scott, you're a brave man, so I will go to 54. And you are older. Here are all the people that are older than you. Roughly 1/3 are younger than you. But it gets a little sadder. If we just look at males, you are older than 71.1% of male Americans. Let's see, Sethan, you are a woman, 32 years old. Sorry, that I have this distinctly segregated and don't have gender non-binary, which I think is absolutely legitimate. And you are 32, and I am not shedding any tears for you. You are younger than almost 60% of all female Americans. And I will take one for the team. Male. I am 62 years old. I have gotten used to this. It still stings, though, that I am older than 81.5% of male Americans. The only solace I take in this is I have a brother who is 5 years older than I am. He lorded that over me when we were growing up, and now I am getting revenge on him. In any case, this thing that may not have been so interesting, you show it to somebody, I guarantee you they're going to click their age, then their partner's age, then their parents, then their kids, then whatever. And they're going to learn a lot about the data because it's within a context that's meaningful to them. I'll share some other examples. How is the store you manage doing compared to other stores? So you can see your dot and how you're doing. You're not doing really well. This could probably be depressing. Each individual store manager, I can't see who that person is. My director can. And maybe my director meets with me and say, look, I know this is a little disheartening, but let's work on some key areas and let's see if we can move things up. In fact, you're particularly having trouble with staff knowledge here, and that's your dot compared to everybody else. I'm going to have you meet with, one of the top people and get some ideas on how you might improve things. And here's how things look the next month, and look at all the improvement. Look, you were way down here, but you moved up this way. So this, hey, I'm going to make you the focus of things. Trust me, this person's going to want to see the dashboard the next time it comes out and see where their dot is compared with others. New York Times published this thing. Look, it's not that many months ago, but back in February, it's like, when can I get the vaccine? When can I get the vaccine? Where am my place in line? And they published something which would allow you to say where you live, how old you are, et cetera, and go through this whole thing. And it would show you, well, here's your place in line. Another consideration is wherever this, hey, here is your story, your division, your product, you versus everybody else. If you can, try to show it with disaggregated data. So here's a salary comparison thing. And this is showing my salary versus the average of all others. And am I bummed out by this? Am I angry because the average of everybody else is this, and here's my salary? And it goes, well, maybe I'm not that below average. Here's exactly the same data, showing quartiles, upper quartile, median, lower quartile. Here's you. Oh my gosh, I'm in the lowest quartile. This jittering, where you kind of randomly move the dots left and right and then show the dots within context, it can really open stuff up. And I want to show you why I'm so high on this way of visualizing stuff, and this showing here's you compared to others. So I don't have time to get into this, but this is exactly the same data, just a somewhat more honest way to say, here's your place in this salary universe. So I do want to share why I'm so high on the jitter plot. Let me give you the setup. This is 7 years ago, working for a major healthcare company. They had data on thousands of companies and all their employees and families, so millions of people. And the goal was to save costs and save lives through compliance. Are these people taking their meds? Are they sticking to their diet? Are they doing their exercise plan? And they would meet with organizations, especially the ones that were really having trouble, and they might have a slide like this. The incidence of diabetes in your organization is 18.5%. The average of all organizations is 4.9%. And that didn't really drive action or realize, well, just how bad is that? So we created a sequence of slides or a dashboard that would work sequentially. There are 790 dots here, each one representing a different organization. And dots near the bottom have a low incidence of diabetes. Dots near the top, high incidence of diabetes. Let's spread the dots out just so you can see where they're clustering. There's no difference between a dot to the left and a dot to the right. You can just see, oh, I can see there's still, a lot of dots here, not so many here. Here's a demarcation point. If you're above this line, you are in the worst 1%. Here's where your organization is. And boy, did this resonate in a way that the summary data with the syringe slide didn't. And the reaction was, you could almost taste it. It was the first time I built a visualization that had such a powerful effect. And I was determined, I always want to create something that gets people to both understand something clearly and maybe move them to action. All right, last thing. So we've discussed why bar charts are so great, how to try to get people off of looking at just numbers, because it's really hard to look at a bunch of numbers and be able to compare them. But bars are amazing. A purposeful use of color. Color only goes so far. Making the stakeholder, your audience, your consumer, the focus of things. But an overarching concern for me, and this goes for the consumer as well, that the dashboard creator and the dashboard consumer should see eye to eye. This thing always see eye to eye. So what is this thing? It's a production still from an episode of a TV show called Night Gallery. My guess is very few people here have heard of Night Gallery, but the same guy who created Night Gallery, Rod Serling, created Twilight Zone. And it was one of those freak you out anthology series. And I saw this episode as a kid. It's called Hell's Bells. And this guy, by the way, you ever see the Addams Family? That's Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. And that's John Aston. In any case, he's in this car accident. He winds up in the waiting room of hell, and he's excited. He's going, oh, I can't wait to see the fire and the brimstone and like Hieronymus Bosch type of things. And he's in this waiting room with a bunch of bumpkins, this couple that is going to show us 8,000 slides from their honeymoon, really awful, vapid music. And he says, enough already. When do I get to see hell? And then Satan appears and says this, hell is never what you expect it to be. But for you, this is it. It's a curious thing, but they have the exact same room up there. You see, while this room is absolute hell for you, up there, it's someone else's idea of heaven. So the same place that's somebody's heaven. Now, remember, I'm a kid, I see this, and this room's large. It just totally freaks me out. So why am I showing you this thing where somebody's heaven is somebody else's hell? Because I want to discuss this chart, because I have very conflicted thoughts on it. Hey, if you have ever seen this chart before, give me a yes or a no in chat. If you have ever seen this chart before, give me a yes or a no. Okay, I'm getting a lot of yeses, nos. Well, you've now seen it, those of you who have not seen it before. In any case, what is this thing? Well, in Edward Tufte's seminal work, The Visual Display of Quantitative Information, he became the great popularizer of this chart. He writes, this may be the best statistical graph ever drawn. Here it is translated into English. It is an attempt to show and chronicle Napoleon's failed campaign to conquer Russia between 1812 and 1813. It was created by Charles Menard, who was a brilliant French civil engineer and a pioneer of data visualization. This weird shape, here's where it would fit on a modern map. And the thickness of those odd shapes shows the number of troops Napoleon had first heading towards Moscow and in the retreat. I am not going to get into how to read this chart, what it's about. I do get into it in the book, even though I don't think you'll ever need to create something like this. Here's another famous chart, a chart that changed British healthcare. Any of you seen this one before? If you give me a yes or a no. Okay, got a yes, some no's. Yeah, this thing's really making the rounds recently amongst the data visualization cognoscenti. It's not the Jon Snow one, Matthew. That's the famous cholera map. This was actually created by Florence Nightingale. Yes, the founder of modern nursing was also a polymath, brilliant statistician, and had an amazing penchant for data visualization. It's called the Rose chart, but she called them wedges, and it shows the effect of changing sanitary conditions at the Scutari Hospital in Turkey during the Crimean War. This chart changed the British healthcare system. So, some thoughts on this. First thing comes from R.J. Andrews. He's a friend and colleague, brilliant historian on data visualization. Critics suggest that Nightingale's mortality data is better shown in something more straightforward like a bar chart. Hi, I'm the critic. But this is not true. Florence Nightingale made lots of bar charts. No one cares about them. Her roses gripped 1858 readers, and they still hold our attention today. Here's one of my data visualization heroes, Alberto Cairo, in his book, How Charts Lie. I believe Nightingale's goal wasn't just to inform, but also to persuade with an intriguing, unusual, beautiful picture. A bar graph conveys the same message effectively, but it may not be as attractive to the eye. So, everyone's holding these things up as being amazing. Possibly the greatest statistical chart ever drawn. This changed the British healthcare system. And you may have a takeaway, I guess I should be making charts like these, right? So once again, in my head, no, you shouldn't be making charts like these. And I hear Lewis Black screaming at you. Let's get a second opinion for a moment on these charts. So this is Seth Godin, brilliant marketing guru. If you haven't read The Practice or subscribed to his blog, I suggest you do so. Here's what he says about the Menard chart. I think this is one of the worst graphs ever made. Tufte is very happy because it shows 5 different pieces of information on 3 axes, and you study it for 15 minutes, it really is worth 1,000 words. I don't think that's what graphs are for. I think they're trying to make a point in 2 seconds for people that are too lazy to read the 40 words underneath. Also, Stephen Kosslin, who is the former chair of the Department of Psychology at Harvard University, wrote in his book Clear and to the Point that the Menard chart kind of violates all cognition principles. It's just serious overload. A colleague of mine, who is a brilliant data visualization practitioner out of Lisbon, Portugal, does incredible work with Excel. His name is Jorge Camoes. You may be familiar with him. He decided to do a makeover of the Menard chart. Here's what he came up with. And it was an intentionally tongue-in-cheek, just, hey, let's really just dumb this thing down and get to the bare point. But there is something to be said for this. I'm sure he would do something a little bit more involved. But the key thing, if you go back to, should I be making charts like these? Wonderful book about all the charts called The Menard System by Sandra Rendgen. And she writes about Menard's audience and what Menard could have expected. The expectation was they were sophisticated, well-to-do, sitting at a drawing table when they were looking at his charts with a ruler in hand. When was the last time you saw somebody looking at a dashboard and they had a ruler? Can you imagine showing the Wedge chart, the Nightingale Wedge chart, to a busy executive and that person saying, oh my God, this is amazing. Where's my protractor? That's not going to happen. Always be thinking about, what does my audience need? What are they looking for? How can I help them? How is what I'm making going to help them? And I don't think a Menard-like chart necessarily is going to help them. Maybe it will. A friend of mine suggested I read this book before writing the big book of dashboards, or before taking that on with my 2 fellow authors. Badass Making Users Often by Kathy Sierra. That's the takeaway in the book. People don't want to be badass at using your tool. They want to be badass at what using your tool allows them to do. That wasn't my takeaway. My takeaway as I was reading it was, what are you doing to help your audience? What do they need? What are they looking for? If you can get in that head and have that understanding, then maybe you can serve them better. This now informs everything that I'm doing. Let me show you a typical agenda slide. How many of you have seen stuff like this? You show up for a day-long workshop and you see this. And I know when I show this what people are looking for. They don't care about this. This is what they're looking for. And face it, you do the same thing. When do we get out of here? When's the break? When do I do such and such? So kind of having that in your mind, you're going to do a better job with your charts and dashboards. So I would say the overarching thing in any of this stuff is always be thinking, who is your audience? What's the message? And I think ultimately your goal as data visualization practitioners is you're here to provide the greatest degree of understanding with the least amount of effort. Least amount of effort for your stakeholders, for your audience. For you, you may have to work really hard, but that's why the purposeful use of color. That's why just showing a table full of numbers isn't going to cut it. That's probably why you're going to use so many bar charts. And really want to make something that's going to be interesting and useful to your stakeholder, make them the centerpiece of your dashboard. Hey, we can continue this discussion anytime you would like. Here's my website, Data Revelations. There's a lot of free stuff there. There's my email, my Twitter handle. Also, everything that I've covered today is covered in the big picture. And if you go to bigpic.me, it'll take you right to the book page of my website, and you can download a free e-sample. So if you think, hey, this looks kind of cool, it has the Dolomite example in it also, as well as several others. Go to bigpic.me, download the free sample, or decide this is so good, I'm just going to go right to Amazon and just buy it. But if you're not sure, you can get the download for free. So with that, and we can put happy to put the URL into chat, and I'm going to stop sharing, and happy to defer to Michael and William. And again, Siku, thank you for all that you've done and allowing me to join the group. And it's thanks to Spencer Bauke, who introduced us. It's been fun getting to present to you today. And now you can tell, go ahead, everybody chime in and say, no, Steve, that's totally wrong. And here's why.
All right. Earlier, you told us to remind you about the tech support calls, the data.
Okay. So the you saw those technical support by hour of day and day of week. It wasn't technical support calls. It was, when does Donald Trump tweet? And I would joke, this is when a politician really likes to tweet. The fact that I'm using an orange color palette is just a coincidence, and I'll leave it as an exercise to the viewer. And on January 7th, my editor contacted me, panicked, going, we cannot have that example in the book, as because those tweets just fomented an insurrection at the Capitol. And going, well, what are we going to do? Have a whole new example? I said, we can just leave it the way it was and just change it from tweets to, when do we get technical support calls? So
nice.
Yeah, and kind of. By the way, don't do anything about politics in any book that you write. You'll be sorry that you do it. There's an example where I'm showing what Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, was trying to convey. Here's our situation with the pandemic. This is March of last year. And shortly, Cuomo went through this huge scandal in New York. It looks like he's going to be weathering it. But I changed it from Andrew Cuomo to just the governor of New York. So if there's any tip, it's like, just leave politics or politicians out of any book you're going to write. It's not going to come out well for you.
All right, well, the floor is open. Any questions from the audience? Go ahead and either chat, actually type, say something, get off speaker. This is open environment. So any questions from anybody? The floor is yours.
I see something from Pamela saying, I will never again say charts are boring, your points are right on target. I'm going to say something that some people may find controversial. I think it's fine to have a boring dashboard. I question whether you should be telling stories with the dashboard. So I think it's okay if the dashboard's boring. The findings from the dashboard or the presentation you give based on things that you found in the dashboard, well, that should be fantastic and riveting and amazing. But I'm not sure if the dashboard has to be this thrilling experience versus something that helps you find something that's amazing that you want to share with others. So I just wanted to so I'm just seeing the Sekou, should I take the questions as they're in chat?
Yeah, either way. Yeah, just go for it.
Okay. Are more options to ease the transition after you've introduced a highlight table? Smacking people in the head, if the highlight table and the marginal histogram doesn't work. I'm sure there are. Really, where I suggest you work with your stakeholder is find out, well, what are the questions we're trying to answer? What is the thing that you want to know? And I'm here to work with you to try to find a faster way to show you what you want to know. Realize one reason they may say, and other people, if you agree with this or disagree with it, by all means pipe in. No one wants to come off as being dumb. And so maybe they're not comfortable with the scatter plot that you've created because they don't know how to read it or use it properly. But rather than say, you know what, I'm having trouble understanding this. Can you take a minute or two to walk me through it? They don't have that level of comfort and instead go, I don't need to see this, just show me the numbers. So that may be part of it. So also, you're probably going to fail more often than you succeed with this. that I'm succeeding more because I've got the book behind me and stuff like that. But as you're trying to convince people that there's a better way to do it, or hey, here's why I don't think we should be using classic traffic light colors of red and green, and they give you pushback, think of yourself as being a Major League Baseball player. And if you get a hit 30% of the time, you're an all-star. So if you're able to win your battles as you're trying to get people to adopt better data visualization, if you win 30% of the time, I think you're doing great.
Hey, Steve, I just a quick comment. I think when it comes to like making charts and dashboards, I think we're so accustomed to see so much information all over the place, you know, in like magazine covers, banners and stuff, that we maybe try to replicate that same amount of information in our work. But if we study cognition, visual perceptions, and all those, you know, technical and really specialized terms, you come to realize that, wow, you need to have some sort of knowledge of how the brain works in order to make charts that are effective, so they can flow rapidly into your users or your, you know, whoever you're making the chart to.
I really think you're spot on with this. Remember, when you see something beautiful in a magazine, Wired magazine, you see something on a website, remember that the pressure on that designer is probably different than the pressure on you. That person is trying to make sure you don't turn from page 13 to page 14, that you stop and look at it and take it in. That person's probably going to put a really catchy title at the top, you know, study this chart or you will die. Oh, that's probably going to stop me from turning the page. Yeah, you kind of got me. Or visually arresting, because it's just competing with everything else that's in the magazine. And you see that stuff and go, oh, I want to do a similar thing for my internal communication. You know, the charts and dashboards that are being used internally, even stuff that's customer facing. And the answer is probably not. It's a whole different set of design pressures that are on you. By the way, the absolutely best among us can make things that are visually stunning, but are analytically rock solid. I'm not in that category. I think I'm pretty good at the aha, less good on the ooh-ah, but the very best can do both.
Hey, I have a question. So
Yeah.
What are some steps that you take to engage your audience to, you know exactly who you're developing for, and exactly, you know, what it is that they're trying to need, that they need?
So and then I see Fira has a question I really want to answer, but let me, for the sake of where these things tend to fail is where there isn't a collaboration, an active collaboration between the creators. So, and it's not so easy to make that happen. You know, it's like, well, that person doesn't have time to do this or meet with me or go with something like this. So if you are removed from the consumer of what you're making, that's going to just make it harder to guess right. And I'm reluctant to embrace, you know, requirements documents that someone says it has to have this. Go, well, has anyone, you know, to what degree has this been vetted? And has this, do the stakeholders buy into this? And can the stakeholders, you know, really say, oh, you're right, that's this thing I asked for, that's not going to be so useful. So I outlined something, by the way, before 5 years ago, before in fact coming to Nashville to meet with a client and work with somebody, I had thought the idea of a dashboard by committee and with a whole bunch of people in the room at the same time discussing what should be done was a horrible idea. You know, there's an aphorism about, you know, a camel is a horse designed by a committee, and I thought it would be disastrous. And instead, it was unbelievable that you had everyone that had skin in the game, so to speak, stakeholders. I came in as the data visualization expert, so to speak, but you had someone who knew the data and knew it really well. And then you had the people who are going to be selling the tool, marketing the tool, and the people who are going to be using the thing that they were trying to make. It was a company that was going to be part of their offering was embedding dashboards right inside their product offering. And we started by saying, hey, instead of doing it this way, here are some other ways, and here's why I think this would be better. And everyone was there for like this first presentation. There was back and forth, and the stakeholders kind of had good ideas, said, you know what, could you maybe do this instead of that? And said, hey, these are really good ideas. Let's reconvene in an hour. I'm going to work with the person who knows the data really well, and we're going to iterate. Over the course of 2 days, we totally redesigned 3 dashboards. The stakeholders were only involved for maybe a total of 4 hours. And the stakeholders became like active collaborators. They saw their work being realized, their ideas being realized. It was also you, the data visualization expert practitioner, able to show them, well, here's why a pie with 18 slices probably isn't going to work so well. Oh, you're right, it doesn't work so well. And then, so if you are able to have that experience where the creators are working directly with the consumers, it can be transcendent. If not, you have to have a pretty damn good proxy in between, because otherwise stuff's going to get lost. You also want to have a tool that will allow you to iterate and try stuff quickly. You don't want to meet with these people, get them all excited, and then it's 6 weeks later you implement the stuff. Also, hey, the question from Fira is, everything I showed you should be able to be done, or similar things should be able to be done in different tools. There is nothing I think I showed today that is Tableau specific. I made a chart with bars. I made some packed bubbles. Maybe you don't get packed bubbles of a particular tool, but I'm sure you can make an equally terrible chart using other tools if you wanted to. So I'm trying very hard not to be this to be about any particular tool. It's not how you do something in a particular tool, it's what you should be doing and why.
Yeah, to Anthony's point, Pack Bubbles is a custom visual and Lollipop has a custom visual. I think there are a couple that you showed. There are custom visuals in Power BI. So you can get to them, they just might not be there by default.
Yeah, and you've got an awfully rich community. If it's how do I make a such and such in Power BI, someone out there will point you to how you make the such and such in Power BI. By the way, I have a packed bubble example in the book that I actually endorse. After I'm telling you I think they're the worst thing ever, there's a case where, well, here's where you don't need to make an exact comparison, but just an emotional comparison may do a good job for you. So I'd say 99 times out of 100, I'd say use a bar chart, but there are cases.
I think, Steve, from just one of the things that I've found is a challenge when you say getting stakeholders involved is, like I said, is where we've got a big project that we work on each year, but we've got stakeholders from 17 different organizations, and you've got half of them love a ribbon chart and the other half want a column chart. And so it's sort of like you then go, okay, throw the ball in the air and which one lands down to actually give them the chart that they want. I've resorted now just to having both charts in the Power BI report, so it keeps both
and
groups happy.
Anthony, that may be the only way to do this. That if you've got so many different people and so many different audiences, and they insist on seeing this, if you have a strong preference and a good way to argue the case one way or the other, and say, look, I'm absolutely willing to maintain these 2 different ways of showing it. I'd like to make the case for why I think this works better, but I could be wrong. Or maybe we find a third way but ultimately it's which one is answering the questions people need answered faster with the least amount of effort. And that's what you're trying to do with them. If you're trying to win them over to a different way of viewing things, say, well, what are we trying to do? Now, part of this is they have to be willing to give. If it's so clear, one way takes 2 seconds, the other way takes 25 seconds and is fraught with errors, but they insist on the other way of doing it, there's nothing you can do. This person's being obstinate. With the other thing that you've done is maybe it sounds like you've got a pretty good idea about how to deal with this and thread the needle on it. I guess you have to do both. But maybe if you feel strongly or can really make the case, gosh, one of these things is so much better. Let me see if I can maybe make a 2-minute video making the case, saying, look how much easier it is to do this, this, and this. I'd like to suggest we adopt this, but if you feel no, we need to have it this way, then okay, that's the 70% of the time you're probably going to fail.
But I think the thing is, as well, as what I've also found, though, is that working on a particular report at the moment, it's a chunky report, is that there's some of the sort of the way that the data works goes down to sort of 4 or 5 levels of a hierarchy. And there are people who are wanting to view that each level of that hierarchy in the same way, but they're wanting to view it in multiple different ways. And so previously in the past, we might have had like 20 odd pages, just because you would have had 4 pages at the one level of the hierarchy, another 4 for the other level of the hierarchy. And it's actually pushed my brain to try and get it. So you've now got 4 pages only, but you've just got a slicer that people can just flip and choose whichever one they want to view. So it gives users a lot more flexibility and functionality to what each particular user wants to actually do with it.
And Anthony, is this by chance like a roll-up KPI type of thing? And where at the top level, we need to drill down to all these sub-levels and the sub-levels?
Yeah, it's roll up across the thing. And the thing is, though, is that you've got so many different people who want to see things in a different way. And
I'm gonna share 3 examples with you. So what you are defining is a pretty common problem in a large organization. And what's important to this little fiefdom is not the same as, no, we want to see it broken down by this, this, and this. There is a huge KPI roll up, roll down example in the big book of dashboards, and there are 2 KPI examples in the big picture, including a lovely Power BI one, Nick Snap, who does some wonderful work. So but that, gee, how do we serve multiple audiences through a single dashboard? That's very hard to do, and maybe it may be too hard to do in a single dashboard.
I don't know. It's one of the things that I've actually found really challenging, and actually love the challenge to actually try and serve multiple users. And how do we do that? So
yeah, well, but you're not alone. You know that this is a really common thing. I'm seeing the question here from Nick. How can I come up with my own A/B examples to test prove a visual is better than another or better than a spreadsheet? You just try the different things, and you just need a handful of people to say, hey, look at this thing and look at this other thing, and I'm going to give you a few questions to answer, which comes, which is easier for you. And, I don't think you have to do it formally. I created that particular, compare the bars, compare the area of the circles. By the way, I tried to make the area of the circles the easiest thing to get. I said half should be easy. And I purposely didn't do half for the bar because that's really easy. I purposely made it a little bit less. I was trying to stack things in favor of the circle. All right, that was a pretty easy example. Get a bunch of people to take this, but I don't think you even need to do it formally or have something. Try the spreadsheet, try a few things, come up with typical questions, and then see and ask your stakeholder which one they found the easiest to answer the questions.
Brenda, I just had a quick question and a comment. I do agree with the color statement that too much color can be bad, but I do also use it for cross-functional things because people can clearly see, blue is one group or green is another, and it does kind of help as things are with interdependencies and things of that nature. But I did have a question in terms of the data visualization for strategy sessions versus dashboards. Do you think there's one type of graph that tends to work better to highlight different situations that you can clearly click through quickly to find out, you know, if this country is doing better, do we know what city, do we know what product, do we know what, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's too dependent on what is the data that we have in the audience, you know, so that the, I'll see, here's questions that come up in a lot of user group things, and I share amusement with this, that I hope you all know who Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflic is. If you don't, you should. She wrote Storytelling with Data and has a whole practice around storytelling with data. Brilliant woman, brilliant book. And it will be, hey, what's your favorite chart type? I'm going, I don't have a favorite chart type. You know, it's whatever chart does the best job of conveying what I want to convey for that particular moment. So Brenda, without knowing a little more about, when you say strategy type of thing, without seeing kind of the data and what's intended, I can't say, oh, you know what? 3 out of 4 times when I've had that type of situation, this type of thing works great. So, but there may be, oh, that particular situation with that data, yeah, I think this, or maybe a combination of that other thing. But without seeing it, I'm reluctant to offer, oh yeah, a chord diagram with a 3.5 twist, degree of difficulty 9.8 is what will work best in that situation.
We're
Thank
near the
you.
end of time, so we'll take one more question.
Steve, I wanted to briefly describe how I create dashboards and get your thoughts on it, because it might be a little out of date, but I'll take what are my key metrics, and it kind of goes along with Brenda's question as well. But I kind of figure out what my metrics are and my key fields and list those out. And then I'll use this out of date reference card that I'm going to throw up on the screen real quick. So this was last updated in 2018, but it has kind of the categories help me, like the types of analysis you want to do, comparison, change over time, ranking. And it actually has the Power BI visuals at that time. And so it kind of told you what visuals help you with what analysis you're trying to do. So it's very, very practical. So I kind of use that. I take the audience, the fields, and I think through these categories to brainstorm what my dashboard might look like. I'd love to hear what you think about that method and other ways you might go about it. What other tools you use to do that creative work?
I like this. I'm fascinated by this question because it's forcing me to think, well, how do I approach this type of thing and what goes into it? I'll be honest, I would find this rather intimidating. You know, all these different types of chart types, and oh my gosh, what am I to do with this one, and which one works best, and is this going to work, etc. And this is kind of the reason, sorry for the plug, why we look at dashboards. Instead of this being, oh, this chart is great at showing this, and this chart is great at showing this, we took a scenario approach, which is, if you have this particular predicament, here's what we think would be a good way to show it and why. We make our argument for use this chart, this type of thing, etc. The other thing is, you know, look, I joke that I'm a professional chart looker adder. And if I'm confused by a chart, you know, there's probably a problem, because, you know, this is all I do is I look at charts and think about them. If I'm confused by a chart, my audience is likely to be confused by it. So if there are any things in here which is like, man, I'm not exactly sure what this thing's doing, but it looks cool, probably not going to want to use it. The other is, you know, the part to whole type of thing. You know, so by the way, how many people think pie charts are evil? You know, go ahead. You know, you've probably been told this at some point. Yeah, right. Pie charts are evil. Donut charts are just as evil. They're just cooler because you get to put a number in the middle of them. Pie charts have their place, and I make the case for them. It's a very particular case. It's one pie chart at most 3 slices, but it's amazing what you can do with it. And I make the case So recognizing, oh yeah, that part to whole, but how you use it and where you use it so that your stakeholders get a nice big fat aha, is different than, oh yeah, part to whole, pie chart. I'll have 3 of them comparing these 3 years. And look, it's easy to see how the slices have changed over time. No, it's impossible to see how the slices have changed over time. So this thing is, whoever curated it, they did a lovely job, but I'm finding this a little too difficult to digest this and then and know the strengths and weaknesses of each piece.
Yeah.
My guess is you could probably bring this down to far fewer and have an easier time of it. I'll recommend one more thing, and I know we're going a little bit long, but so yeah, I'm plugging my own stuff, but Colnuss, Founder, Netflix, How Charts Lie, and Do I Have It readily available? It's called Better Data Visualizations. Hold on one sec. Come on, man. I just had it the other day. Beautiful book. Now, yep, here it is. Plugging a colleague's book, Better Data Visualizations by Jonathan Schwabish.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hope that helps. All right. Hey, hope to see people on the other side. Visit Data Revelations. Follow on Twitter @Data Revelations and download a free sample of the book.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. We learned so much. That was a great presentation. Thank you for answering all our questions. Before we head into social, 15 minutes after the meeting, just a reminder, next month, July 22nd, we have our Power BI dashboard contest. So hopefully we can use some of the stuff today into the contest. If you want to participate, comment on our Meetup and say you want to participate. I think that's the best way to figure out who's going to participate. So comment on our Meetup page and we will enter you and put you on a schedule. So with that, we will head to social hour. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you all. Had a blast.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. That was great.
Yeah, it was great. You did a great job.
Yeah, he was persuasive. I feel like I learned a lot of things, and I might not use as many pie charts. Or maybe I will in the right situations. And he made me want to read some books and to help me think about the creative process.
Yeah, he's like pretty big in the Tableau community. He's like, in essence, like a Microsoft MVP, like in the Hall of Fame.
Nice.
So like in the Tableau equivalent of an MVP who's recognition and all that stuff, like he's that in the Tableau community.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for finding him, Sekou.
He found me, so it worked out.
I think the only thing is I find for myself is that you've got all these data visualization books out there, and there are so many of them out there now. It's sort of you trying to work out which ones to actually read or get hold of or look through, because essentially a lot of them start repeating the same sort of mantra through many of them. And it's sort of trying to find this key points out of the few, because you can get, I think, again, you think, well, dashboarding, you're cognitive and your brain gets overloaded. Sometimes your brain gets overloaded with the too many different things and the number of books that you end up reading.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, you make a good point. I have like behind me, I have all those sort of database books, and they're all trying to share their dogma, but at the end, it's like